Alright guys, welcome back to this week's lesson. Now this week we're going to be talking about a failed trade. So I'm going to be sharing with you a trade of mine that has failed, and we're going to be walking through it together. Sort of like a post-analysis, as if we're doing it together, right? To find out, well, what went wrong? What was wrong about this trade? Is there anything I could have seen ahead of time that could have given me all the bells and whistles to say, be careful, watch out for this trade? Okay, so let's take a look into some of these criteria here. So this was a USD Japanese yen trade, daily 4-hour charts. Okay, so if you wanna, take a pen and paper or take notes of it, just to stay on top of things. Now, before we go down to my trading time frame, which is the 4-hour, we want to have a quick look at the daily. Now, the daily, what would you say is the direction of daily? I'm trading right here for a sell. Okay, let me just click so I can click out again. There you go. So you can see, let me zoom in a little bit more. So you can see the detail there. So what are the couple of things that come into your mind off the bat? Okay, I'll give you guys 10 seconds just to look at all the conditions that you can train your eye to spot the market conditions. Okay, so a couple of things that we can see is, one, we're in buyer's territory. Okay, for this time frame, right? We're in buyer's territory. So let me write that down on my end. Buyer's territory. Okay, there's a bells and whistles over there. Okay. Okay, it's in buyer's territory. Now, notice I'm not going for a sell that goes all the way down to here. So, like, what am I doing? You might be thinking, well, what are you doing, Naveen? Why are you hitting that sell? Okay, this is what we call a counter trend trade, which is range trading. It's only inside this little box right here. Is I'm going for the sell from there and taking it all the way down to this end of this green part here. Okay, so the next thing is, if we look at the whole scene, we're looking at something that looks like a money spot. Okay, we got support, resistance up here, and we got support just below us. So we're in some kind of an area that could be a money spot. Not to mention, we have the upward movement slowing down. So that's the thing that was coming into my head. It's like, oh, it's slowing down. It's leaving wicks on top. This could be the first movement for the turnaround for the markets to prepare to go down again. Okay. The next thing that was also catching my eye was, well, what if this thing is looking in this area? Now, it's not precise. There is still a lot of space to go. However, that was something that's also looking at me like, maybe this is the top. Notice the words I'm using. Maybe, maybe, maybe. Everything comes with a maybe, right? So I'm going against the buyer's territory. I'm trying to front run the trade, which is trying to anticipate the movement ahead of time. Now, let's first think of this in the psychological sense. Before we even get into the technical and we solve the whole case, let's get into the psychological part. What is the need for me to catch it early? What is the need for me to catch it early? So let's list all the facts and let's list all the myths. Okay, the fact is, if I catch it early, then I know I'm trading clean, because I'm not trading with, I'm not chasing the market. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. The second way of looking at it is the greed side. If you're trying to take it early, you're trying to take the topmost price so you can get the most out of the trade. Okay, which in my case, it's not the case here, because I'm not going for the entire home run. I'm just going for entry exit there. Which means at some point in my mind, I already have some kind of knowledgeable fear that I don't think it's going to make it to the bottom. However, I'm not recognizing that fear. Okay, so what is taking over my mind to take the trade? Is it that objective of, I believe this is the top, versus I don't believe this is the top? That's why I kept my take profit down only till here. You see what's going on? There's a battle in my mind, and there is not a clear-cut vision on this trade. Okay? So that's something you always have to notice. When you're trading, it is not the charts as much it is as you're like, as if you're looking in a mirror to yourself and you're like, Bob, what are you doing? Or you know, Jenny, what are you doing? You know, whoever you might be, just self-reflect and be like, what are you trying to do here? Do you truly believe in yourself, or are you having split expectations? Okay, so that's one way of approaching this. Okay, so this is gonna be a little bit long video, but I'm gonna make it one solid video for you guys, so you guys can understand how I do my post analysis and how I break down and try to fix the errors that I do. But I wanted to show you how a losing trade for me looks like. Okay, so right now you've heard the psychological part so far. Okay, which is there is something there that I'm noticing just by looking at this days and days and days later, saying that I did see a fear there. That's why my take profit wasn't so high, but I also had the greed there to try to get in early. So there was two sides of the coin that I noticed, and I let the greed side, or the side of I bet this is the top, take over. Okay, that side took over from my brain. Okay, now let's take this down, knowing that it's an up move that's slowing down, but it's in buyer's territory. No sign of the up move going into a rest. You know, if you look at the gauging momentum, this rubber band man is showing no signs of resting. Not to mention, his signs are saying, I'm not resting at all. He's leaving tails on bottom. So that missed, overlooked by me, those tails. I went in, once I figured out this is the top, I straight went into the 4 hours to look at the detail. So I didn't look at the daily with full precision. So that was objective number one that was missed. So there's two things so far. Sorry, objective number two. Two things was, one, buyer's territory. Just simple basics. Buyer's territory. That one was defied, but that's okay because I had reasons for that. But then the second thing also was I missed all the tails on the bottom, showing me that there's no way that these sellers are trying to give up. Because this was done several days ago, maybe that is the reason why I kept my take profit so low. But then the question comes is, well, why even risk it? Why even risk it? So let's now go down to the 4 hours. So two mistakes so far just on this chart. Let's go down to the 4 hours now, and let's have a more thorough, detailed look. Let me clean all this red lines. It looks like you know, Freddy Cougar came by, or Dexter has been here. 1 second here, let me remove all. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm gonna click out. There we go. That's the stop loss height. Stop loss height was just above this probe area, like that. Okay, I left it above just basically above that wick. And take profit, I left it a little bit more inside to make sure that take profit is filled if it does go down. Because I don't know if it can go down all the way to this bottom, so I left it a little bit higher, so I know for sure I'm going to be filled because I wasn't around. You know, the last 2 weeks has been completely busy. In fact, that is the reason why I haven't even been able to do a post analysis on this one yet. So even the elite community members are waiting to hear what I have to say about this. So if you guys are in the elite community, this is your answer. But at the same time, so here we go. So now we're on the 4 hours. We're looking at the entire story of the markets are going up very hard on the daily, slows down a bit, goes up again, but it goes up choppy this time. The height is smaller, right? So this is height number one, from here to here. This is height number two, from here to here. So the height is smaller, and so is the thrust. Look at the speed of this up move. Okay, look at the speed of this up move. It's fast, but every time it's up, it gets knocked down. Fast, knocked down, fast, knocked down. This is all one move, but there's like 3-4 major knockdowns in it. That is a question of concern to me. It's like, well, what's going on? Okay, now I'm getting consumed on the 240 without knowing that the daily is my big boy, and the big boy is showing me signs that it is not being knocked down. The buyers are buying it right back. But my mind is too focused on seeing the knockdown because I want to catch the corner, right? So because of that situation, I get dragged into just focusing on the 4 hours, and I'm reading this and I was like, hey, this thing is basically calling it the top. Not to mention this last bit is completely taken over by one solid red bar. Now these things are a sign for me that says, wait a minute, looks like this could be the top. We're in a money spot looking area from the daily. I remember that somewhere in the back of my mind. Things here on this secondary move up that is smaller and it's chopped into pieces. So that means there's a struggle in there already. Not to mention the V formation looks highly solid. This must be it. Okay? My brain is now getting into that moment of, hey, just prepare your trade. This must be it. But there's something about how every time it comes down, it jumps up. It comes down, okay, doesn't jump up here. And the first time, the first time I was looking at this, when it didn't jump up here and it came back down, I was thinking, is this it? Should I be selling this thing? But then, obviously we know by timing, things don't go immediately. They take time to roll over. Like, look at this. If it had to roll over, it's not going to go down immediately right here. It's going to take its time, and then roll over. It needs to get to that squeeze point before rolling over like this. Just because this is a down move, it's not going to just go down from this piece here. It needs to take its time a little bit more until the squeeze part and then drop. That's how normally a rollover happens. Okay? Like here. Here's that V formation. Just because this thing didn't go up anymore doesn't mean it's going to drop from here. It takes its time a little bit longer, and then the rollover happens. Okay, so anyways, so I didn't take that sell from there. That was a good decision. And I was like, I'm not going to sell at where buyers are sitting. I want to, this is a landmine here, you know, kaboom area. I want to sell with the sellers. I'm going to let the market come up to somewhere in this area, and I'm going to sell it. Now, the market came up to that area, left the wick on top, boom, weekend happens. Okay, weekend's happening. I'm doing my thing. I'm out. I go, meet my friends, go out for a party, have some drinks. Come back on Sunday. Sunday, I'm looking all this over again. It's like, time to make some money again. And looking at everything, organizing everything, and I'm seeing, hey, I remember this trade from last week. Well, what am I going to do about it? Everything looks fine. But now also remember, psychologically, I am free because there was a weekend in between, so my mind is fresh to rethink again and to sort out my thoughts in case I was lured in by thinking, I need to sell this now. Giving it enough time makes me patiently think about it. And that's when I started to think, I don't like the way these things are going upwards. So then what I did was I moved my take profit in and I said, I'm going to go for a 1:1 R. This is a 1.18, if you can see the risk reward. But I was thinking, 1:1 is sufficient because I have a feeling it's going to bounce, come back up again, take its time, and then try to make this massive V formation down to here and stuff like that. I was like, it's a money spot. It needs to develop the money spot, which means I can trade this range, right? I'm thinking 2 steps ahead now. Right? Because when a market goes up like this, I'm thinking this is going to be a little chop here, and I'm trying to trade that range, and that chop finally makes a boom on the higher time frame. This looks like a nice V formation, followed by a very large test. On this time frame would be very large, and then the final drop that would come much later to go all the way down, right? Much later. So I was like, well, I'm here on a Monday. Or late Sunday morning for me. I'm watching this throughout and just making sure, doing all my checkpoints and everything, all mental checkpoints, to make sure I'm on the right track for everything, right? So then that fear makes me move my take profit a little bit lower, and then that wick that was left on Friday just before the market closes also gives me a sign that this trade is ready. Now, 2 things happen. Market opens up and it gaps, and I'm like, no, it gapped. That gap is not good for me because that means I missed the absolute premium price up here and it's gapped. But that's okay. I'm not gonna let that fear make me take trades earlier and have a trade holding for the entire weekend. That's just wrong. Okay, just out of so a gap happened, which means, okay, this shows me another sign of, hey, the sellers are around. Okay, they're strong sellers. I'm also aware the gap needs to be filled. They're gonna fill up this little inconsistency of supply and demand. They're going to fill up those orders that were missing in there. So I watched it even more carefully on the 1 hour. Now this is now my precision time frame, which is the third time frame. And I'm watching this carefully. And I see this. I see the gap get filled and leave wicks on top. Not just one, but two, and then three. And I say, that's it. That's where I'm going to enter. I'm seeing all the signs that makes me sell. Now, don't forget, I'm still in a money spot. Money spot means markets are going to move heavily. I just don't know which way. Which way is determined by all the homework you and I are talking through right now. That is going to determine how well you're going to be able to call out your money spot. Okay? So I'm reaching this area and I see this, sorry, let me click and click out. There you go. That's the size. So I reach this area and I hit that sell and I'm like, okay, here we go. Instantly, the trade goes against me. I put in a decent stop loss and I'm like, well, if it goes above this guy, there's no point of me being in the trade anyways. So it does get me up, it stops me out, but I don't even think about re-entering because now I'm at a state of confusion. Remember, when the state of confusion is I did all the research and my research was wrong, and now here's the deer in the headlights part. Remember when I teach you guys that the first move is always, you know, let's say the market goes down, 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 down. Let me move this to a mouse so you guys can see. Down, down, down. The first move is, oh, what's that? I'm not sure what's happening. And then followed by the next move up. Okay, so this is like the panic, right? Like, oh my God, what's going on? The next move is the confirmation, right? It's like, oh crap, you know, the deer in the headlights. And then the final move is action. So just like this first move is obviously I'm oblivious to because I'm sell biased. Then the next move up that happens, I'm already like, huh? What just happened? I'm shocked. This is how the normal market reacts, right? I'm just shocked out of this whole thing, right? Sorry, bad shocking eyes. Okay? I'm shocked and I'm like, what's going on? Why is this thing going up? I'm still not taking action. And by the moment it gets up to here and I'm like, oh, it's a buy. Well, I'm obviously too late at that stage. Because that's when everyone thinks it's a buy, right? So I know that, but I know that at the same time, while I was getting stopped out and the market's going up, I didn't have the courage or the brain power to say, you're wrong, instantly turn around and go for a buy. Can't do that either because I'm at a shock because I've done all this research and it's not going for a sell. It's going for a buy. And at that moment of a buy is you even forget why you have your take profit so low, you know, so tight instead of so far away, is because you knew something was wrong. But you're not acknowledging it when you hit a stop loss, because in a stop loss moment, you're like, oh man, what just happened? You're too busy thinking of that as the trade strolls away, by the time you come back to your senses, after your discussions and talks with your peers and this and that, and you're like, or a lunch is in between, or a dinner is in between, and you come back and you're like, of course, I missed some elements, but I couldn't grab the other side as well. I was in a money spot. I couldn't flip the trade either. Because if I flipped the trade, I would have to flip the trade here, and where's my stop loss? Down here? That's too risky. Because I don't know if this guy is going to smack it down again, and I don't know it's going to reach up to this high. So too much fear running at that stage to hit the buy either. Okay, the only moment I can hit the buy is at the moment of stop loss, and if I can put together all my thoughts instantaneously, then I can come out with this trade with one loss and then one profit and probably end up at break even. Okay, or maybe make a little bit of money. But here's the question. Is that normally humanly possible? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. As human beings, we do give heed to our emotions. We do pay attention to our emotions a lot. You know, Just we will all notice this happening on a day-to-day basis. Any little thing will make us angry. Anything we see on the news is going to make us sad, upset, angry, fearful. Anything we get triggered with emotions, the brain slows down. The brain power slows down. Okay? So you need to keep this in mind, that stopping and reversing can be dangerous if you do not have the mental capacity and training to turn off one side of the brain and activate the other side. That's hard to do. That means you need to have training of years and years of trying to lock the emotions and become emotionless. Almost sounds like a serial killer. But that's basically what I'm trying to say. And that's hard to do. That's very, very difficult to do, you know? And that's one of the reasons why they say, you know, the biggest businessmen that you see, they're almost heartless. And they're not heartless. They're trained to be emotionless, and they're not getting affected by little things here and there. You know, these are the same people who will sit behind their desk and a tsunami is gonna happen, and they're like, I know what to sell, I know what to buy, because they're so not affected by it. They just look at it like this is another day in the world, and it's just business. Okay? And as average people, this is very hard for us to do. This is very hard for us. Although we understand the logic and we understand why it is important to be emotionless in trading, but it's hard for us to do. So that means we're coming down to the question is, okay, if we're going to be somewhat emotionful, then what can we do? That means everything prior to this trade, to the left of it, cannot have mistakes. That needs to be done thoroughly, which means your analysis is not after your trade, but before your trade. This makes you the best trader, is how much work and time do you spend on this piece. If you're spending a lot of time afterwards and messing with your trades, closing them early, letting your take profits close out early, letting your stops hit prematurely, or closing out of fear, or closing out of greed, or holding on out of anything you do afterwards, it's just emotional based. Anything you do prior is more logical. There is less emotions involved. The only emotions involved is I gotta make some money. If you can control that, and that's not evil, you know, I'm not saying a tsunami just happened and you're trying to make money off of people who lost homes. I'm not saying that. I'm not even trying to put you on a guilt trip like that. This is simple analysis, right? Simple analysis. So there is a lot of mind training that is required to do all this, as you can probably see. A lot of mind training, which means when you're doing your analysis, stay calm. If you're doing your analysis after, if you're doing your analysis after a rough day or anything like that, wait a little bit. Wait 24 hours. Look for an opportunity tomorrow. Don't look for it today. Okay? I looked for this opportunity. Why? Because I was traveling. Okay? And I'm traveling and I need to take a trade. Okay? I need to take a trade. This is just before early July. July 4th, I was in Malaysia. Okay? I don't know if you guys saw my webinar on pivot points. So I was in Malaysia at that time, and I wanted to take a trade before I got onto the flight, and I wanted to take a trade that made sense. So I had some kind of a pressure with me that I wanted to do something so I can preferably show it in the webinar and be like, okay, let me walk you through this trade in the webinar. Unfortunately, this trade failed, okay? And it failed due to all those reasons that I have mentioned, okay? Okay, so let's recap it really quickly. Going over back to the daily, I'm gonna clean everything up. So boom, boom, boom. I wish I knew the shortcut of how to just remove these red things. Okay. Drawing tools. Remove. It's gonna remove everything. Okay, anyways, I'm just gonna leave some of it over there. So, a couple of the main things. Okay. One, buyer's territory. That one was wrong. Okay? Buyer's territory. The next thing, noticing that the daily, although it's showing a lot of beautiful signs on the 4 hours saying that the buyers are dying, On the daily, it looks like for the daily people, the big boys, our bigger boys in the 4 hours, for them it looks like sellers are trying, but they got nothing. That's why there's tails on the bottom. Every time it goes down, it jumps up and closes. It goes down, it jumps up and closes. So the daily people are not scared at all. In fact, they're looking at it like, nice. Support resistance is holding. Very good. Okay? And when markets look at that into a, you know, money spot and everything like that, well, obviously the big boys are going to win. Okay? I looked at it as, this is the money spot. This might be a sell. But we're not close to that money spot yet. So that was a mistake there. I just took it upon that I believe that's the high. Okay? I made that story up in my head based on the conditions that were shown in front of me. I even looked at this and said, that sounds logical also, but notice a distance here as well. Okay? Look at that. The distance is quite high, and I just assumed because there's a big wick and everything, I was like, makes sense. And then I worked backwards. Well, the first push was this big, second push was smaller, and then I started putting in all the rules that justify the trade for a sell. Okay, you have to be very, very careful with this, because notice the mistakes come from the mind. The mistakes come from the mind. So I really wanted to share this with you because I think these losing trades are actually more valuable than winning trades. Winning trades, great, you know, like you'll do them time to time. I'll do them all the time. 60, 70, 80% of the time I'll have winning trades too. But I notice my students don't learn as much as they do from my losing trades, because my losing trades, they get to understand every step of the way the thought process, because in a winning trade everything is correct, so there's nothing to learn from. So I hope you had a breakthrough with this. We still have one more week to go, one more final week before you are done with the 4CB. And isn't it great how far you guys have come already? This is a 6-month course, 25 weeks. You've come a long journey. Everything I'm saying to you, every webinar you now watch from me, in the back of your mind is going to be this sentence of, I know exactly what he's doing. Because you've taken the course, you understand how I look at the markets, you understand how you need to look at the markets, and you have a better vision of what the markets are trying to tell you. Okay? And then you use that knowledge and try to be prejudiced as well as possible to try to gauge when is the turn of the market. So in this particular case, I was too premature to try to do the sells, and notice what happened later. Here comes the sells from here. Okay? And this one is more credible. It's like, okay, well, this downward thing got devoured. Let me lock this. I wonder if okay. let me open it up somewhere else. I want to show you this. Hold on. Let me open it up here. Okay, USD yen, 4 hours. Great. Okay, let's go into the daily. Here we go. Make it bigger for you guys so you guys can see it. All right. So now, here was that downtrend line, right? So it's gone beyond that. But then we notice this thing going up and then back down as if that high doesn't exist. So that's one good sign. Another good sign is that's parallel highs. That's another good sign. Another good sign is this thing going up, slows down, going up, slows down, going up, slows down, going up, completely turn around. Now we don't know yet because this is equal V formation. But then at the 4 hours at this stage, this is slightly later on, right? 4 hours at this stage, they're now working towards that same thing I thought was the key. The strong sellers that came down, I like that, versus the upward move that struggled. So that tells me the V formation is real, just like I got caught into it over here, followed by a struggling up move. That wick would have got me interested, and a little bit more movement to roll over. That would have been great, but any stops above here wouldn't have taken me out anyways, and that takes me all the way down to either here as my first stop and then my next stop down here. A little bit more logical, but notice what the difference is. Notice what the difference is. I have the daily letting me do this. Because remember, when I was trying to do it here, I was in a buyer's territory and I was counter trending it in the hopes that this is a daily, weekly money spot. See, such a big time frame, and that's where the problem comes in sometimes, is your mind goes into so much knowledge that you've learned that it can also backfire. So you have to be consistent, slow down, and pace yourself. Because I make the same mistakes I always teach too sometimes. And it's just human, right? Like, so be careful at what time frames you're looking at. It's very critical not to get caught up into that. And be careful with trying to catch the trades too early. Okay? Remember that meter I showed you guys. You know, too early is a stop loss, too late is a wide stop loss, and you're hurting your potential, and you can still get spiked. Here's the middle. You want to be entering right there. Okay, as much as possible. Okay, and that's your optimal level of entry. Okay. All right, so again, hope this was useful. Let me know in the comments below if you found this very useful. I'm sorry if the English was a little bit complicated, because I know we have a lot of international students in here as well. If something doesn't make sense, or if the English is not good, let us know. We will re-explain it in a different way, so that way everything makes sense. So I will see you guys next week. Next week is our last week, and let's finish strong. And I'll see you guys in exactly 7 days. Cheers.